All right, if you can say something, I can check the levels here.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
All
Testing 1 2 3.
right. You said that a few times, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. So,
And for the record, I do know you're recording me, and I think it's perfectly okay.
thanks for saying that. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Um, my goal here is not to transcribe this interview because it would probably be impossible. I'm probably just going to write an extended article with lots of quotes from you.
hmm
Um, so, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. I mean, I'm still working on the DVD, trying to get it finished, and hopefully I'll get it finished this year.
And you've been
You
working
know,
on that for you were telling me for 3.5 years now.
3.5 years, and not a day goes by that I didn't work on it. 3.5 years.
How do you keep other parts of your life going?
It's not easy.
I can't imagine.
It's pretty hard. And, I mean, really, for 3.5 years, there really hasn't been other parts of my life. It's been me and the room and the editor, and fixing it up piece by piece by piece, and it's working. But it's working. It takes a lot of time, and it's really slow.
Yeah.
The end result, though, is it's just perfectly fine. Like it's repair. I repair it, and I mean, I'm really just repairing things. I'm not actually, doing things to make it any better than it was. I'm just repairing it back to what it should have been before the damage. But the end result is it is repaired, and that's what's good. It's
Yeah. Remind me again what happened. I know we've talked about
oh,
this.
we just had it was just one of those days where the things that were recorded, there was some bad gear, and no one noticed. And so basically, I had to fix the drums, and it was 12 hours of music, and really the only way to fix them was to literally, find each beat and resurrect it. It wasn't a question of being able to play it again or have the drummer play it again. Basically because he's on screen, and you just never match, the kind of playing that he does. Lots of very, very busy passes.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way to just get someone to just play it again, even if it's the same guy, and match it all, and it just wouldn't work. So
You
really,
had. I'm sorry. So you had a recording.
pardon me.
You had a recording of the drum
Well,
track.
we had a recording of what was essentially clicks and pops, but certainly not usable as any kind of audio track. And so basically, I was able to, on a note by note, beat by beat basis, basically go in there and fix each one.
And how are you doing that? How physically? What you're using? It's digital. You're using software.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I use software, and I basically even had to design some of the programs to do, because there are programs out there that they're called drum replacement programs, and you can send your drums to these programs, and they shoot back a sample of another drum.
Oh.
But for the kind of work I had to do, they just wouldn't work. I mean, it was just impossible to use that. There's too many beats. There's too much noise. There's no definitive signals, that could be sent to the unit. So basically, I had to take them one by one, one beat at a time. Being that I'm a drummer and also an editor, I was able to, discern exactly what's being played and extract each beat and, turn it into the right beat with the right sound, with the right dynamics, at the right pitch, and then place it back in. So basically, one by one, the jigsaw puzzle, just, putting the drums back to what they were originally, almost like forensic sort of editing,
Mm-hmm.
and cleaning it, one at a time. I guess like restoring a painting or something,
So you're doing a total of how many hours of music are you?
Well, I've been doing it for 3.5 years, every single day. I started taking Sundays off about 6 months ago, but every single day for 12 hours minimum.
And
That's a lot of time.
Yeah, and so how much audio, like how many hours of audio is there that you've been working on?
It's about 12 hours of music.
Okay.
And, when you're dealing with a drum set, you're dealing with each individual track, is a different track. So you've got right hand, left hand, snare drum, tom tom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 kick drums,
Yeah.
Each one of them has to be done. And they have to be done properly so that you really do see what the drummer really did play. And I'm very finicky about making sure that it's extremely correct. And so, there's times when, for instance, drummers do that. They hit the rim, they hit a stick, I have to make sure that, those are still there, like that it's all exactly what he did.
Mm-hmm.
So that it isn't fake, really. It's just cleaned. And I guess like changing every blade of grass on your lawn one by one, with a needle. That's kind of what it's like, But it gave me shoulder problems, and it gave me back problems and neck problems, and physiotherapy, and just all kinds of stuff. I've done over 1.375 million edits.
Wow.
It's hard to even count to a million.
I'm trying to just fathom, how do you keep at it, other than, obviously you want to get this done, and it's, become the holy grail, I guess, or maybe there's a better term, but.
Well, it's kind of like a Zen thing, once when I first started, I didn't realize just how involved it would be. Like, okay, let's see if I can fix this type of thing. Wow, I was able to resurrect that beat. Gee, let's see if I can resurrect the next one.
Mm-hmm.
It was that type of thing. And then once you get going, it's like, well, you know what? Look what I did. It took me a day, but I resurrected, 30 seconds of music. So then you continue. And the fact that that it turned out so well makes you say, well, this is worth it. It's not as if I was doing this and it was turning out crappy. I would, at some point, I would have said, well, this is just ridiculous.
Right.
But it really is. It really has turned out absolutely perfect.
Was there a point?
You'll see this and you'll never say, gee, this was edited, or this was resurrected out of noise. No one will say that. No one, even I can't say that when I'm looking at it, because it really is properly, resurrected. And we did have the option of saying, look, let's get the drummer in, let's let him play it again, but it was just impossible, because he's pretty much playing like fusion and very improvised, and there's no way to track, what he played. Even the guy that played it couldn't possibly do that.
Yeah.
And it would show, did he hit a right cymbal, a left cymbal? Did he hit the snare exactly at the same power, that you're seeing on the screen? And he's on the screen at least 50% of the time. So, it was either fix it the way I decided to, or throw the whole thing away. And I think, at that point, that wasn't an option.
Was there a point early on where you thought there's just no way to do this?
Oh yeah, I mean, every time I got into the next tune, I thought because I found there's new problems every time. I mean, we had the problem of the bad, the clicks and the pops, and the beats being completely distorted. That's one thing. Then I'd get to a tune, I'd find out, well, the mics weren't even on some of these tunes. So I'd have to listen to I'd listen to the room mic, of the band, and hear, okay, I hear him doing a tom pass, it's going deep, 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 deep. I'd have to discern from these clicks and pops what he was really playing.
Yeah.
And then go back and replace the sound.
So all the other audio was fine?
Yeah, everything else was fine, guitars, vocals, that's all fine. That's what made me want to do it. Like, if all the rest of it, had been a problem, But I mean, the fact it was, I didn't want to throw away what, these guys had come and done this thing for me, as an absolute, it was done as a favor, really.
Mm-hmm.
And at great expense to some other people. And I just didn't want to say, gee, thanks a lot, thanks for doing it for me, but, it's too much trouble and I'm going to throw it away. So I was just determined to fix it. I didn't think it would take 3.5 years. Thought it would take like 4 or 5 months. But here I am, literally 3.5 years later. In June, on June 14th, it'll be 3.5 years, and I'm still not totally finished. I'm down to one song, and so soon I'll be able to actually look at it the way I would have looked at it. Let's say had I come home in December of 2010 without a problem. What do you do with a 12-hour video when you come home with it? Well, I guess you have to put 2-3 months into mixing it, right, and figuring out what to do with it. But I'll only be at that point in a couple of months, in a month or two.
So it's sort of back to the beginning.
Yeah, in other words, I'll be where I should have been when I came home with the files.
Yeah.
And that's good. So I lost 3 to 4 years of my life, but it's like a judge said, you're sentenced to solitary confinement for 3.5 years as a penance for having done this show.
Well, they say nothing comes without hard work. So
no, that's true. Nothing is free, right? I mean, these guys did this for me as a favor, and as it turned out, after 4 years of work, I pretty much paid.
Yeah. So was this?
That I didn't pay them.
Was this Peter Daniel? Was he the?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Peter Daniel. Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading up before we talked about. So it was an interesting little art. There was a where is it article, and it's called StudioLive Design. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. It was a blog, but they got into some of the details, and which some I didn't know a lot of them.
Well, Peter, he's just an amazingly wonderful person. And, I didn't even really know Peter. He was a friend of mine. And it just came about as a conversation, and this is just an incredibly wonderful guy with an amazingly wonderful crew. And when they offered to do this for me, initially I had said no thanks, I felt like, well, I can't take advantage of something like that. It's just not me, But then he's so insistent on it, and he literally just showed up in Cleveland and said, "I'm doing this thing for you," and I couldn't believe my good fortune. And I'm a pretty religious guy, so I thought, this is a gift from God. And then when I came home, everybody was happy. I mean, when we did it that day, nobody knew there was going to be a problem. And, I came home with the stuff, and I uploaded a thing from my guitar solo, A Little Town of Bethlehem, to YouTube. And, that was that Christmas of 2010. And, got fixed down and decided to start mixing, and then found these problems. And I was pretty disappointed. The picture's amazing. The job that Pete did on the pictures, because this, it was just one of those things. It wasn't his responsibility that this thing happened to the audio. It was just one of those things.
Right.
My recorder screwed up, and the backup recorder with the guys running it in the studio, and just the way things were being fed, no one noticed that there was this problem. So it was one of those things. I think it was pretty much intended to be this way. Wow. And for some reason, I had to prove I wanted to do this.
I guess that's pretty much the only way to look at it and make it through.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Who was playing with you that night?
Well, I had my drummer, Dave. I had Mark, the guy that's been playing bass with me not for very long. He was on bass. I had Avi, my violinist, is usually my rhythm guitar player. He played violin on a couple of tracks and some rhythm. And then I had Nick Lane, who played rhythm with me on Real Live.
Right. The drummer, Dave Good?
Dave Good, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I know him.
And the thing is, nobody thought this was going to happen. I mean, we were going to Cleveland that day to do a gig, and a 12-hour gig, and shoot it on home cameras. It was like, hey, why don't we go and do this gig and take a couple of cameras and shoot it and see what we can do with it,
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to meet Peter by a real weird sequence of events involving a projector that I had to rent from him, and he heard what I was doing, and he said, you can't do it that way. Like, I never did a video before, I don't know anything about video. I know a hell of a lot about audio. But he said, you just can't do it with it in your hand. It's not going to work. So why don't you let me come and do it? And I said, well, you know, you guys do Bruce Springsteen and all kinds of people. I don't have that kind of money. And he just insisted on doing it. And I really didn't expect it. And then he was so insistent. And all of a sudden they show up and he's got the director and he's got light people and crew and trucks. And I couldn't believe my eyes.
Yeah. Well, you have some major league fans out there, Frank.
Well, you know what? For a man to do what he did, you know, this is like, in my opinion, it's really something. You know, like I've never met a person who did anything like that before. And there's been a kind of, you know, there's been some people that have done some pretty nice things, but this was beyond the pale. I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, and this is why I couldn't not sit back and say, both to God and to him, I could not sit back and say, you know what? It didn't work, and so what? And I'm too tired, and you know, I'm going to throw it away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I did that. You know, so I just said, look, button down and give your life to it, make it, you know, and finish it, do it. Well, I can tell you, I won't ever do another one. That's for sure.
Well, you'll probably make sure that everything's working first too.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, I guess had I done a few before, I'd have been aware of some of the pitfalls that could happen. And, you know, to top it all off, that entire weekend, I hadn't slept in 2 days. I did the whole gig, you know, with no sleep. It was just, really wasn't ready to do it the way I did it. And it was freezing, and it was winter. But you know what? It all turns out to be the reason, you know, what it was meant to be. I mean, that's the way I looked at it, so I have to look at it. Everything happened the way it was supposed to happen, including this incredible job. I'll tell you something. If ever somebody came up to me after this thing is published and said to me, you know, we love this thing and we're going to give you some kind of award for it as a guitar player or as a musician or whatever, you know what I'd say? Give me the editing award. I think, you know, I have to, if you see the way it was and the way it's become, you have to know that it's probably the greatest piece of editing ever done in audio.
Well, yeah, it was only a couple days of playing and 3.5 years of editing.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, 2010 was the last time you were touring.
Yeah, that was it. That was the last gig. I actually left the house once in that 3-year period to do a one-shot sit-in with a local singer from around here. I had done a record with her, and she wanted me to come and play a couple of tunes on her gig in Quebec City, and I went. Her name's Nanette Workman. And I actually went out that day and did it. And that was when my shoulders were really bad. It was really hard to do, but I went out, I did it,
mm-hmm.
and I came back home. It was about the only respite I've had from this.
Was Norman playing that night?
My brother?
Yeah.
Was he playing that night?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, because I thought he had told me that you showed up. You were playing at a gig he was doing. Or maybe no. I have my facts wrong. It was so long ago.
Yeah, it might have been. That would have been the we had a reunion.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. We had a reunion. It was kind of a party, and the people from who I grew up with, we had a reunion. So yes, I went out that night too. That was, but it was a private party, you know, where everyone was jamming, and I went and did that.
How was that? Was that fun?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, you know, because it was not a show.
Yeah.
It was just all the guys that I grew up with, and we jammed, and there was no pressure to like be anything other than sitting around and jamming with guys, and you know, everything was it was just a lot of fun. You know, Norm filmed that, and he's got that on like a tape or something that he's editing together, and you know, it's pretty cool. It was fun. I think I played 3 or 4 songs.
Oh, all right. What's Norm going to do then? Is he going to put it out, or is he going to?
No, I don't know if he's going to put it out, but I think he's going to give it to all his friends. You know, give it to everyone that was there, basically.
Oh, cool.
Probably put it up on Facebook or something like that. You know,
right.
Not for sale or anything. It's a bunch of guys that we all grew up with. We're all older now, and it was great to see everybody and we played a bunch of cover material, basically. I played Hendrix tunes, and some of the other guys played, tunes from their favorite acts. Norm obviously played from the Grateful Dead stuff, and it was great. It was great to see John Eves, guy that I grew up with, who went on to become one of those hot dog skiers that you see in the James Bond movies. And it was great to see all the guys and to play these tunes, play Hendrix and Doors tunes and stuff from the '60s. I'm probably the youngest guy there.
Well, how old are you, Frank?
I'm going to be 50 in November. But I was always the youngest guy in the town where we grew up. Like, everyone's like at least 3 to 4 years older than me, if not more. So
yeah, so you and I are 3 months apart.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but which is strange, because I feel like I grew up listening to you. But
yeah, I feel like I grew up listening to me too.
Yeah, but I mean, I know you were young when you were putting that stuff out, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did my first album. I started the recording for my first album at 16, and I finished it at 17. And that was my life back then. I didn't, do the high school thing or any of that other stuff.
What's your favorite album from back then?
Well, certainly not the first one.
That was Maxum?
Yeah, certainly not that. That's a cringer for me. But I like some of the songs. I just don't like the way I did them.
Right.
I even did some of the songs on this DVD. But I'd say the third one, Strange Universe. I'd say Strange Universe of those early albums is probably my favorite.
There are some songs that you did on some of those earlier albums that I don't know if anyone has ever heard except Frank Marino fans. Like, I'm thinking of, in particular, Little Sexy Annie is one of my favorite songs ever.
Yeah, that's, I think, on the fourth album. Yeah.
And you just don't hear I like to turn people onto this music. I'd like everyone to hear it, but it's difficult,
Well, the weird thing about it was all those years that we were going out and touring, unfortunately, we didn't do a lot of the stuff from the albums when we played live. We were, I think, miscast, if you want to put it this way. The management that we had was always putting us on shows with bands like Aerosmith and stuff like that, and so we were playing more of the rock and roll style, Johnny B. Good, King B, that type of thing. Had I not been in those kind of gigs, had I been cast with other kinds of acts, I probably would have played the other stuff. But for so many years, we didn't play a lot of the other stuff, and that's something I wanted to repair in this DVD experience. The 12-hour show was the idea is I want to go out and I want to do all the songs I never really did back then.
And you did
or
them?
at least quite a few of them. Yeah, Requiem for a Sinner and Buddy and Child of Novelty and I'm Going Away, and that's all on this DVD. And really, these are renditions of tunes that I never even played live with the early guys, you know. So I'm kind of glad about that, trying anyway and Chains of Space and lots of stuff like that nobody ever heard us do. And that's why I'm happy about this DVD, because it contains that material. It's not just the same material I had on my other live albums.
Yeah, it makes me just can't wait till it's out even more.
And I'm surprised when we did it, because I was, when I heard how it turned out, I said to myself, why the hell wasn't I playing this stuff a lot more back then? I could have done this like 25, 30 years ago.
Well, what's the real reason?
Well, I don't know. I think it's just who we were tasked with, those festival gigs. They just didn't lend themselves to the type of music that we're talking about here. Yeah, we could have done a Little Sexy Annie for sure. But, all the other stuff, Child of Novelty, I'm Going Away, stuff like that just wouldn't fit the kind of gigs we were doing. Because in those days in the 70s, it was all rah, 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 rock and roll, and everyone had to be on 10 all the time, right? You know what those shows were like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was, I just wish that I had been cast with a different, I opened a lot of shows for in my opinion, a lot of the wrong kinds of shows. And consequently, people for years thought it was like some kind of metal act or something, and it's just not, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But
You're right. I
you
mean,
know,
I didn't even know, other than what was on the albums. You know, I mean, I didn't even know the more artistic side of your music. You know.
hmm and I wish it had been the other way. But let's say I had been going out on tour with some of the people that I had grown up liking. You know, like if I'd have been going out on tour with the Woodstock crowd, let's say.
Right.
You know, I never really played with a lot of my favorite artists, and I got to play with more of the newer artists from the '70s. And had I been always cast with, let's say, the other artists, the earlier artists that I'd grown up with, I may have done the other kind of material because it would have fit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could have gone on to Woodstock and played my material, and it would have fit.
Yeah.
But to do Cal Jam and, you know, those kind of shows was all, you know, really high-end rock and roll bands with very loud fuzz guitars and laser beams, and, you know, it just doesn't lend itself to doing a song like Chains of Space.
Yeah. You
know?
I think I had asked you this once before, but I think I asked you if you enjoyed those huge stadium gigs.
I didn't.
Yeah, and that's the answer I remember you telling me.
Yeah, I didn't. I never enjoyed them. I can't think of one stadium gig that I enjoyed.
It looked like you were having fun.
Well, you're having fun because you're jamming with your guys, but everything leading up to the moment you're on stage and everything after the moment you're on stage was just really not good for me, because it was very, very unfulfilling. You know, I come from a time that that music was not a competitive thing. It was a fun thing. It was a sharing thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the '70s became a time where you almost, sometimes I'd go to these gigs and I felt like I was at a sporting event. You know, it was just this very competitive attitude where, you know, we're bigger than they are, and they have more lights than those guys do, and those guys are louder, and he plays faster, and everything was this competition, you know. The crowd liked them better, and they did 6 encores, and they did 2 encores. The whole mentality behind the '70s was all about not, you know, keeping up with the Joneses, but obliterating the Joneses. And I didn't like that, you know, because I didn't think it would be that way. You know, when I was 16 coming up, I thought, oh, this is going to be wonderful. It's all going to be Woodstock and, you know, 60s, 50, you know, love fest. But it really was anything but that.
Yeah.
And so it was a constant disappointment. You know, I'd go to my next gig thinking, well, maybe that other one was weird. You know? But it just got to be the same thing over and over again, and I really didn't. And that's why I quit music in '93 finally. I totally quit in '93. I didn't play. I didn't think I'd ever come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I stayed away for 4 or 5 years, and the only reason I did come back was because of the fans on my own site who just basically convinced me to keep playing at least once in a while for the people who did appreciate it.
Was Wild Willie a big part of that?
Yeah, well, he's the guy that started the site, and it was, you know, totally a surprise to me. I found it by accident. And that site existed before I knew it existed.
He didn't even tell you?
No, I didn't know the guy.
Yeah.
I was searching around the internet one day in like '96 or '97. You know, internet was pretty new.
Right.
And there I find this website. I'm like, who did this? You know, like what is this? And it was, you know, all fans, and they're talking, and there's a message board, and you know, I had no idea that it existed. I didn't know there was even that many fans.
Did you pop on sort of one day and just?
I popped on immediately, and I wrote him a letter, and I wanted to thank him for doing what he did. And then he said, "Oh, do you want to get on and chat with the fans?" I said, "Sure." And he had a chat room at the time, and I got on, started these chats. Of course, nobody believed it was me at first, but then I, you know, became such good friends with Willie, and we started to do, you know, I started to involve myself more in the site, and at one point he wanted to make it, you know, turn it over and make this an official, you know, thing for my band, and I said, you know what, Willie, I don't think it should change. I don't think we should like all of a sudden become this corporate, here's the official site and sell swag and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was a fan site all along, so let's, I'll be involved in it as the official site, but let's just keep it fan site.
Well, you were more than just involved. You were answering questions every day.
Oh, I still do. Every single day I check, and if there's any questions, I answer them.
So even through this 3.5 years, you're still doing that too?
Every single day.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been there, but I should pop back in and check it out.
Yeah, I do it every day, every day, every day.
Now there's an official Frank Marino Facebook page.
Well, yeah, but that's weird because I never use Facebook. So Willie put it together, and said that it's there. I think I went there once, and but I don't use the whole social networking thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not. I'm not into it, and I have such great conversations with the people on my own site. I pretty much know everybody on the site now on a first-name basis, and a lot of them have my phone number.
Like me,
so yeah, it's like I don't have this kind of separateness from the people who support the music that I do. I even hate to call them fans. It almost sounds like you're degrading them in some way. They're supporters, really.
Mm-hmm.
They support what I do, and they support me with either with good advice or with good wishes. And then if I do something, some of them buy it, and it helps.
Yeah.
But they're real supporters, and let's face it, they're not 16, 17. They're all our age,
Yeah, yeah.
And we're all much more serious than we used to be,
Yeah, well, it's like when I met you, and I wanted to do this interview for a long time, and still want to get you on camera at some point too, on video, and do a video interview. And when you said, yeah, sure, here's my phone number, that blew me away. And you said, well, I'm just another guy. Here, take my phone number.
Well, yeah, I kind of tell everybody that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's true, but you're unique.
Well, it is the truth. There's one thing I've learned, by watching others. You learn things with yourself, and then sometimes you learn things by watching others. And by watching others in our business a long time ago, I learned it's a hell of a lot easier to just be yourself and just tell the truth. Regardless of what the truth is, because then you don't have to worry about what you said. Because the truth is always the truth.
Right.
And I've seen too many people in my business that I've known on a personal basis, right? That they'll say things that I know isn't really what they think and what they did, but then I'm thinking, boy, if they get asked this again in 2 or 3 years, they're not going to know what to say. Like, there'll be no consistency.
Yeah. Well,
and I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen to quite a few of them,
And that works outside of music. It works everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I respect people, and I want people to respect me, but I understand that, some people think that you can gain respect by earning it by being good at your craft or whatever. I think the only way to gain respect is to give respect. I think that's how you actually earn it. I don't think it's because of anything you do better than somebody or that you even do very well, for yourself. I think you gain respect from people by giving respect to people, and so I always try to do that. And if a person asks me a question, he should get an answer. And if he phones me up, I should pick up the phone. And, there shouldn't be a kind of a disrespect to anyone.
Yeah.
That's just the way I've lived my life since I'm 16 years old, I'm just that way. Anybody that knows me, all the fans that know me on the site, they'll tell you that's just the way I am. It doesn't matter whether they like my music or not.
Mm-hmm.
What's the music, Steve? It's just music, man. We're not saving the world with this music, and we're not curing diseases and feeding the starving.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of guys with instruments that literally get paid to play and do what they like.
Yeah, it's just entertainment.
And then that's it. It's entertainment. And yes, okay, I appreciate that if you bring it to somebody for a night, you make their night better because maybe they were having a bad week and they go out to a show and they like it and they have a great time. Then maybe you've done them a favor and they've had a night where they've forgotten their trouble. So in that way, you're kind of contributing something, you know. But, you know, is it really that important, you know, what we do?
In the big scheme of things?
No, it's not important at all. I do this little thing in my mind. It's like, you know, you ever see at the end of a movie, the camera goes up, you know, far away, the airplane shot, you know, gets farther and farther as the city begins to fade away at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I do that in my mind. Like whenever I'm in a room where something is supposedly happening that's supposedly important, whether it's me doing a guitar solo or some guy giving a speech or a president or something, and then I immediately in my mind I zoom out of the room, you know, with a camera, like a mental camera,
mm-hmm.
and out, you know, as if there's no ceiling on the room, and I begin to go higher and higher until the room becomes a dot. And you notice that dot, you can't even tell what's in it, but what you do see is you see all the stuff that's around it. And you realize just how little it is compared, and there's a million other things going on in the world at that moment, at that very moment that supposedly important thing is happening. There's a billion other things going on, and the farther you get away, the higher up you go, the less you can even recognize the spot where that supposedly important thing is taking place.
Right.
And that puts it into perspective. I mean, how important really is it at any one moment that anybody does, you know, at that moment in time? It really isn't.
Yeah, the only thing that's important
is
is
normal. It keeps me sane, you know.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that's truly important is how you're treating the people you're with.
Well, you know what? The only thing you take with you when you go is love. And so I think that you're probably better off to practice that so that you have something when when your time is over.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have this, you know, this feeling that some of the things we think are important, I mean, you know and I know now, especially now that we're older, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember what we thought was important when we were very young?
Yeah.
You know, and occasionally, you know, guys will come up to me in the music business and they'll talk about, let's say, because I build amplifiers, right? I build pedals and stuff. And they'll say, well, I have the latest JCM 100 and it's got this phase button and it's got that, and they're talking to me about that stuff, and I'm like, yeah, but in my mind I'm thinking, isn't this a little bit like the baseball cards thing? You know, like, hey, I have a Honus Wagner and I have a Mickey Mantle, and you know, did you see my Mickey Mantle?
Yeah.
It's almost like that, you know, like it reminds me of the joke, you know, mommy says to the kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the kid says, well, I want to be a rock and roll musician. And she says, well, you know, you can't do both.
Yeah. You were talking, and I was thinking of all the guitar players I've seen lately that just plug directly into the amp, you know. They bypass all the toys, all the pedals, all the phasers, all that stuff, and Derek Trucks comes to mind, and I've been going to see this guy Tab Benoit from New Orleans, and they just plug directly in and do their thing, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for that. You know, I was one of the first guys to use tons of pedals, and when I did use them, everyone thought, oh, he can't play without his pedals. You know, that was way back in the early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a lot of pedals then, and then pedals became, you know, more in vogue, and to the point where now there's companies that specialize in making pedal boards for people, you know, and every self-respecting guitar player has his pedal board.
Mm-hmm.
And, but now I use them less. I still have my board, but it's, you know, 1/3 the size it used to be, and the amount of times I turn on a pedal during a gig is, you know, maybe 20%.
Yeah.
Maybe even 10.
So we're segueing back to music, which is cool. The guitars that you're playing with, those are what?
The what now?
The guitars that you used. Now you play a SG primarily, or you used to?
Primarily, I play SGs and other guitars that aren't actually Gibson SGs, but they're built like a Gibson SG, so they have the same feel and neck and shape, you know? And that's what I like. I just like that feel. And the only reason I do is because it was the first electric guitar I had when I was, 14 years old.
What year was that? What year Gibson?
Well, it's a 61 and a half. Most of them are built around the 61 and a half SG Les Paul. Even if I have later SGs of 62 and 63, I shave them down and make them very much like 61 and a half. As long as they feel the same.
Right.
I don't really care about their value. I don't care whether I devalue them or not by shaving them and stuff. I just do it because they feel right to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because the first guitar I had was that. My mother bought it for me when I was 14, came out of the hospital, and that's the guitar I had. So I'm used to that feel. I don't really want to play. There may be other guitars that sound better, and maybe I even like them better, but I'm just comfortable with what I have, and I'm not trying to get better. I'm just trying to like what I do.
Yeah. Well, you were playing that guitar for a while that someone had built for you. Was it it was purple, wasn't it?
Yeah, so Jim Glynn built me a couple of them that are SGs.
Mm-hmm.
And, but, that was it. I said, oh, Jim, if you're going to build me a guitar, you got to copy my SG, so, and he did a fantastic job on them. And, he does great work.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw you played almost the entire show with that guitar.
I may have. I at first I started by not using it as much because, I'd use the Old Faithful and then I'd use the Glynn for a couple of tunes, But as I became more used to it and less afraid of it, if you want to put it this way, I started to use it more and more. And I've got a pair of them. And, any guitar that, if somebody can, there was a guy, Lado, Joe Lado was making guitars called Lado in Canada, and he also built me a couple of SGs. He never built an SG model. His models were more like a bolt-on Strat style.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, no, Joe, if you want to build me a guitar, you just got to copy it like an SG. And not because I love the Gibson SG because it's a Gibson. I just am used to that profile. I'm used to the weight and the shape and the neck.
Well,
I don't care if it says Fisher Price on it. If it says feels the same, I'll play it.
Yeah, we have to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I also asked you one time why you had long sleeves on all the time, and I think you told me that you're more comfortable playing when you're warm.
Well, I used to be. I used to be much more comfortable when I play gigs and I really sweat and get hot. But I got to tell you, in the last tour before, in 2010 and those days before that, I began to feel a little bit more like that was killing me. So I don't know. Maybe I'll go out in a T-shirt or something next time.
Well, you're wearing those leather pants and.
I just like those kind of clothes. Actually, I always liked to know that the clothes that I could wear on stage, I could actually leave the gig and just walk around in them, and they didn't look like a costume.
Right.
Like it could be the real clothes you'd wear. And many times I do just leave the gig and go eat and stuff, and I don't change out of what people call stage clothes. I always found it funny if you'd got into some kind of a costume. And, there was a time when even I was given these wild stage clothes in the mid-'70s and try this and try that, and I'd wear them and have to take them off after the gigs. And it was like, you know what? Even the Cal Jam, I wore that shirt with the big sleeves. And I thought, if I can't be me in this, if I can't just, get into the car and drive somewhere in these clothes, then they're more like a costume than clothes.
Yeah. You still have some of those old costumes?
Yeah, they're all sitting around, give them to my daughters. I have 3 daughters,
Yeah.
They actually wear that stuff.
Yeah, I met them. How are they? They must be getting old.
They're big. They're very big now.
You're oldest?
20, 18, and 15, So.
Man. Those are fun times.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know the feeling. Our oldest is 27, got married last year.
Mm.
So, yeah, I'm glad they're doing good.
Well, at least they still say daddy.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, my girls don't say daddy anymore, but I kind of bust their chops about that, and they laugh. And so after you're done with the DVD, Frank, can you even fathom going out and doing another mini tour?
Well, I know that on the 9th of August, I'm doing a festival here in Canada.
Really?
In Nova Scotia. I just found that out.
Well, that's cool.
And it's called the Something Blues Fest, Nova Scotia, 9th of August. I think it's in Halifax. and because one gig is not enough to pay the expenses, I think they're going to put like 4 or 5 gigs just before it, like in some clubs in Ontario and maybe Quebec.
Oh, that's
To
awesome.
get me there. So I know that I'm going to be doing that beginning, end of July and first week of August. But I haven't played guitar in 3 years, so I immediately have to start playing again and make sure that I can.
You haven't even picked it up just to noodle around and.
No, about the most I've done, other than the Nanette gig in the Den with Norm, I pick up the acoustic guitar with my girls, because they're all musicians, my girls.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll pick up the acoustic guitar and we strum on some Beatle tunes or, fool around, singing and stuff. That's about as much as I've done with the guitar in 3 years.
You physically ready to go play, other than practicing? I mean, how's your shoulder, your neck, your back?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't feel like I am. But they're telling me, you'll be okay.
Who's there?
Well, my wife, Jimmy West from the record label, the people that put it together, my band members, my daughters. They're telling me you'll be okay. Maybe I'll be okay. I feel a little trepidation about it. I don't really know. I haven't done it in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid of the pain, because it was very, very painful.
What hurt most? Your shoulder?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like really, just unbelievable pain, man. Like blue light pain.
Did you have surgery?
No, I had physio. I had 18 months on the first shoulder and 18 months on the second.
They just go in and just like break you.
I had cortisone shots, lots of cortisone shots.
I had a few of those. Those are no fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I'm glad to hear that you'll be out playing.
Yeah, I just hope it works out.
Yeah, I hope it does too. I mean, I want to see you out again. I want to see you play again.
Well, when you see this DVD, you'll see me play. That's 12 hours of it.
Yeah, I definitely want to see that, but I want to come see you live again. I want to see you out there, live, doing the thing.
We'll see, Steve, We'll see.
Yeah. Frank, I appreciate you taking some time for me, man.
Not a problem. My pleasure. Call anytime.
Yeah, I will definitely take you up on that. By the way, before I forget, you know a guy named Chuck Ray?
Yeah, he's my best friend.
What? I'm sorry, what's that?
He's my best friend.
There you go.
He's the guy that brought Peter Daniels.
Oh, okay. Is he even listed in this interview? Because I know somebody, one of my friends, when I told him that I was going to be talking, actually I'll start at the beginning. I told him about my web magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, oh, I could probably get you an interview with Frank Marino. And I started laughing. He said, I know this guy Chuck Ray, and he's like best friends with Frank Marino. And
oh, he's my absolute best friend.
yeah, I have no clue, when someone tells you something like that.
He's like my brother. He's like, I'm godfather to his son. I mean, he's the guy that supported me since the 80s more than anybody. And, Chuck Ray is just unbelievable guy.
Oh, that's cool. I'm glad this guy was legit and telling me the truth.
No, Chuck is, there's no more reliable guy than Chuck Ray. No more of a prince of a fellow than Chuck Ray. He's my best friend for life, and has been for almost 30 years.
When was the last time you saw him?
Well, I see him quite often, but he's always very busy. He's always flying around. He's into like cars. He has a car business.
Mm-hmm.
He does like classic cars and Ferraris. That's his business. So he's always moving around. But I speak to him almost every day. I mean,
Well, that's cool.
Every couple of days.
Well, that's cool.
He's the guy. Peter Daniels was Chuck's guy, and that Chuck got me Peter to come and rent me this projector. That's how I ended up meeting Peter.
Well, okay, cool.
And that happened in Annapolis when we were down in Annapolis.
Yeah, and that's where I met you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that all happened, that all transpired at that show. I came and saw you, and I came backstage. I was going to interview you that
in
day.
November of 2010.
Yeah, I remember I was going to interview you. And after the show, I couldn't hear, so I couldn't interview you. But it was a good couldn't hear. It was
Yeah.
that I just saw Frank Marino, can't hear. But there was no way. So that all transpired then that same
Well,
night.
that's the night that the amazing sequence of events started.
I kind of floors me that I was there. I was talking to you backstage, if you remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the night that it all transpired.
Yeah, that's what
That night, Peter said to me, when I just met him, he rented me the projector for that day. I'm going to come and do your thing in Cleveland. I said, no, thank you. I went to New York the next day.
to BB
Chuck
King.
is the guy that came up to me a couple of days later in New York and said, you better call Peter Daniel. He's going to Cleveland. And I went, what? And sure enough, he wouldn't take no for an answer. And he just showed up there, when we went to Cleveland. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And I was gonna bring up so the how I got into doing this. Well, I wanted to interview you forever, so that was my own doing. But then back in 2012, I was at Mountain Jam in New York State, and I met this girl who was there to take pictures for a magazine, an online magazine. It turns out she works for and is part of loudguitars.com.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that, and her husband, Drew Slaney?
Very familiar.
Yeah. He said that, actually, he said that he was your guitar tech for a while.
Maybe if I hired a local guy when I was sometimes we had local guys help us when we did gigs in certain areas.
Yeah. So this is how I ended up giving her a picture because she didn't have any photographs, and one thing led to another, and the next thing I knew, I started interviewing people left and right, and I was writing columns and reviews, and now they were only into sort of gear and guitars, and I wanted to do more than just gear and guitars, so I started my own thing.
How's it going for you?
Well, we put out our second issue of our magazine tomorrow, and it's all pro bono, it's all free. I don't get paid. It's enjoyable. I'm getting to meet a lot of really nice and interesting people, and getting to see a lot of cool shows, and it's a hobby for sure.
Well, it's fun.
Yeah, I got to meet Bill Ward from Black Sabbath a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I met Bill.
Yeah, I sat down and interviewed him on camera for about a half hour. That was kind of cool. So, but you, my friend, are the person that I want to get on camera and do an interview.
Well, we'll do it at some point.
Yeah.
I'm in your area.
For work, we go to conferences all the time. I'm a statistician, if you remember. And last year, the big conference was in Montreal. And
oh, really?
Yeah, except I was sick, and I ended up not having anything to present on and didn't go. And, I was pretty bummed because I was going to be there, and I was going to come see you.
Well, if you get up here again, come and see me.
I will, Frank.
All right.
All right, man. Good luck with the rest of the editing. You got one more song, so get it done.
Yeah. I'm gonna get it done and move on.
All right. Well, I'll be in touch.
I'll speak to you later, man.
Thanks, Frank.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.